How you doing today, folks? Welcome to Carl Briggs 73 Live on YouTube. Today I have an extraordinary gentleman that I want to interview on my show, and it's about the kids in the urban area, the black culture, right? The culture that I come from, and how they are being taught in schools and why most of them can't advance, especially in these areas down here in South Central LA, in these ghettos, in these areas, all the way down to Atlanta, Mississippi, Georgia, wherever you got poverty, right? Even some Latino kids as well in these underprivileged areas. And so, Shay, what I want you to, one of the things you said that jogged my mind was the structure of what's being taught. Can you explain it to the fans and let them know what's being taught and how it should be taught better?
Well, back in the day when everybody was going to school, if you remember, it wasn't too much history taught in elementary school. The only thing they talked about really, when it came down to history, was slavery. Then they start teaching that in the 3rd grade, but you don't really get no history to like the 6th, 7th, 8th grade on up, you know what I'm saying? In middle school on up. So what they end up doing is they taught you about how they came into Africa, took over everything, raped everybody, stole everybody, turned them into slaves, and like nobody really fought or anything like that, right? All right, so as a young black child, as in a male body, right? You sitting there and you feeling like a warrior. You watching all these cartoons, but then you find out no warrior stood up for your people. You like, what's up with that? And so it starts to get into their mind. I think Umar Johnson, he talked a little bit about it or whatever. It starts to get into your psyche. But it's funny how, if you think about it, when you didn't even know presidents until the 7th or 8th grade. You didn't have to know anything about American history until really high school. So why the fuck we gotta learn about slavery so early? And that's when, the whole process begins. In our mind that's all we ever were. When that's definitely totally not true. But children today are really waking up, and they're not accepting the same answers and things like that. I remember I was in school and I never agreed with the things in the history book. I wrote what they said to pass the test. When I got to college, I had a little harder time to do that, but in my mind I knew this book wasn't right. And a few times me and the history teacher got into it about it. But at the same time, that's what's going on with. I was a minority back then. Now that's a majority. I talked to my son and other kids his age, and they're saying how this stuff ain't making sense to them, and they're asking questions. And that's a healthy thing. And we as adults, to do a service to the children, we need to go back, analyze what we were taught, and we need to come to our own conclusions so that we can give them the truth or point them in the right direction, begin to point them in the right direction, because the history we've been given, now we know it's only written, like they say, by whoever won the war, which that's neither here nor there when you think about it, because all the stuff that the Germans were doing, the Russians did the same shit, because the Russians fought. The Russians killed more Jews than Hitler. But because the Russians fought with the Allies, they got pardoned. Nobody said shit about it. They didn't even have to get a pardon. It was like, oh, well, we was with y'all. And damn, man, you killed like 18 million Jews and shit. Just out there in the cold and shit. You froze most of them and shit. It's crazy. So that's the way we've been taught history. And we need to understand what's really going on in society and how we can help the next generation, because generation after generation, you're supposed to get better. You know, like, by the time your kid is 22, he should know everything that you know. He should know everything that you know. He should be ready to blow way past you. Because that's how things work in the universe. The universe evolves. And it's time for us to evolve. Take this to the next level, man. You know, these kids ain't hearing none of that stuff that we were willing to listen to. It's time. You know, and it don't matter if you can see if it's time or not. They see that it's time. And trust me, they got their shit together. You know, it's happening.
First of all, Shay, right on. I'd like to thank you, man, for the information. You know I'm always looking for my next best story. And there is much validity to what he's saying. In order for these social injustices to stop happening, police brutality, discrimination, unequal playing ground, we have to first get into a truth in history, what the true history is. I too had to go learn and relearn my history, and now I understand some things. Not to get on the race subject matter, because that's not of a black culture, right? That is of a different school of thought, depending on what doctrine you're under. We're no longer under that doctrine, but however, we're trying to serve humanity, and it starts with, let's get proactive in being collective, right? Collective and collaborate in this historical artifact, and being honest about everybody's history, right? What we teach our kids, what we involve our kids in. I always send shout outs. We got the Science and Industry Museum down here. You got the Historical History Museum down here, and we don't take our kids at all, right? And then we sit back and we don't get proactive in what they're actually learning, right? So now this becomes a social injustice, because he who is uneducated based on his story, right, is somebody else's story. And he has to know his story in order to move forward. So this is the topic today, his story. Check me out, Carl Briggs 73 Live, and I'll be coming with his story part 2 later on in this segment. Thank you for tuning in.